BAFTA TV and Film Awards. But tonight, it's the turn of the gaming industry to be patted on the back for its creative genius. On the shortlist are titles like Call of Duty 2, Modern Warfare, Left 4 Dead 2, Street Fighter 4 and GTA Chinatown Wars. It's an industry worth billions, but recently it's come under fire due to the violent nature of some of its content. So should our children be exposed to violence, even if it's in the world of fantasy? And are such games corrupting the nation's kids? Here to discuss are computerandvideogames.com editor Tim Ingham, Julia Peasgood and Kelvin Mackenzie. Tim, to you first, a lot of people, a lot of parents in particular, are concerned with the enormous amounts of violence in these games. It's a bit more than a TV Western that we used to watch. The Lone Ranger was never quite this bad. Is it defensible?
Very much so, yeah. You could easily say the same thing for movies such as The Hurt Locker or Quentin Tarantino's Inglourious, which picked up Oscars.
But they have certificates on them, and so children under 18 can't get in.
The video games have exactly the same certificates.
But they're at home.
From the BBFC. I'm sorry.
Well, you can't stop children getting in to a house and putting a video on. You can stop them going into a cinema.
Yes, but you can't stop them well, you can stop them buying video games in the same way that you can stop them buying DVDs. And in fact, the retailers of video games in this country are incredibly strict on the games that are allowed to get into the hands of minors, if you like. An interesting statistic for you is that just 1 in 20 video games is rated with an adult rating on it, which just goes to show that 19 in every 20 games are suitable for kids. And they're not only suitable for kids, they're suitable for parents to play with their kids. And I think that's the most important thing, is that parents need to learn more themselves about what the content of video games are.
Julie, you're shaking your head.
I am shaking my head. Films aren't interactive. Video games are. Video games are addictive. They promote hatred, racism, sexism, and they reward violence. What kind of a message is that? You know, there's a proven link between behavioural violence and video game violence. In a recent study, listen, hear me out. Sorry. In a recent American study, over 130,000 kids worldwide were monitored, okay? And regardless of age, sex or culture, the kids who had a regular diet of violent video games were found to be more aggressive, they were found to be less caring, they had low self-esteem issues, and they suffered from depression.
Before I bring Kelvin in, let Tim come back on that one. I mean, that's proven facts there.
Well, I don't think they are proven facts. The government's own Byron review, which took place last year, found that there was no direct link between the behaviour of children and what they played in video games long term. However, I think we're getting away from the main point, which is that these games are rated for 15 and 18-year-old adults, and they shouldn't be getting into the hands of children in the first place. We as a nation have a failing. We fail to understand that video games have set age categories exactly the same as film do, and we need to make sure that these video games stop getting in the hands of children, and the industry is all for that.
Would that stop the problem, Kelvin?
Well, my main concern, look, I am not a war gamer, as you might gather, you know. I rejected it quite early in life. No, I'm not a war gamer, but the average age, by the way, is 33 of gamers. My main concern is that the sophistication of video games is such now that actually nobody can tell me where it's all going to end. And the aspect that's raised is that if you get hold of something which is truly incredibly violent, and you look at the difference, if you look at the last 10 years, look between how war game videos have moved on from the violence of then to the violence of today. If you looked in another 10 or 15 years, I am very concerned that incredible things will be happening. And then the psychological actual evidence on both sides is a little bit imbalanced at the moment. It's not clear to me whether children are being damaged by it, although it must be said that the Borgia killers, some 15 years ago, one of them, the boy Venables, he was corrupted by it, or he was affected by it, whether he was corrupted by it. So my issue really is, can you guarantee to me that in 15 years' time we are not looking at a tsunami of violence in the home which is going to corrupt a generation of children?
Certainly, because they're...
You can guarantee that it will not.
Not corrupt children. These video games shouldn't be getting in the hands of children in the first place. It's why companies like Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo ensure that there are parental locks on their systems that give parents the power to stop...
What about the issue of the level of violence?
I think there's far more blood on the hands of movies, if I'm speaking from the hip. If you look at a certain genre of film that's out there at the minute that they have termed torture porn, you get nothing quite as bad as that in video games.
They're not as addictive as video games.
Do you play these violent video games yourself?
I play a range of video games.
Have you got any kids?
I haven't.
Would you let your kids?
I would not let my kids play violent video games. I would, however, let them play the likes of Little Big Planet, New Super Mario Brothers, SingStar. There are a wealth of video games out there that I know I'm the bad guy in this programme, but I really encourage you to try with your kids because you might actually have more fun than you have any time recently.
What do you get out of watching the violent ones yourself? You're older now, so you're allowed to watch it. What's the thrill in them for you?
I don't think the thrill itself is in the violence. I think the thrill is in the storytelling and your place within the narrative. And sometimes if violence comes into that, just as it does in movies, just as it does in literature, then that is, it's integral to the story.
What about Alan Titchmarsh meets Sweep? How violent was that?
We'll judge at the end of the programme.
Tim, how do you defend a shootout, you know, in an airport, which happens in one of the games that's up for an award? How do you defend being there, shooting innocent civilians in your video game?
At that particular level, you don't have to shoot any civilians whatsoever. It's to show you the ethics of war and how you may be in a situation as an agent where you're watching people die for the greater good, but I'm not here to defend that particular scene.
I'm categorically against violence for entertainment. It is just wrong.
But very profitable still.
Well, again,
have you ever seen anything that you think that shouldn't be allowed in your position? I would not allow that. That really shouldn't happen. Or do you just have to go with whatever comes?
No, because as soon as we start down that route, we get into the realm of censorship.
Of common decency.
Of censorship. I mean, you would say common decency, I would say censorship. That's a bigger fear for me.
Well, that we're too censored?
Yes.
So anything should be able to be put on?
No, within the parameters that we have at the moment, which is why these games are legally rated, and they're set against the same parameters as film.
By the way, you included The Hurt Locker in there. I've seen The Hurt Locker. The Hurt Locker is an anti-war film, actually, when you see it. I don't think that is the case for Call of Duty.
Okay, but if you looked at something like Black Hawk Down, which is much more of a pro-war film, you would find comparable scenes.
Well, in 10 years' time, we'll come back and see if, in fact, it did go the way of Kelvin's predictions. My thanks to Tim, to Julie, and to Kelvin. Thank you very much.